Charlie Morton is back. Eddie Rosario is gone for now. A lot going on as we get ready to kick off the offseason for the Atlanta Braves. We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Also, make sure you check out the podcast on social media at LockedOn_Braves. Give us a follow there. We'll have our mailbag episode on Friday. You can submit questions there as well to be answered on the podcast. Also, check out my written work over at bravestoday.com. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, thumbs up button, all those good things to help support the show. During the offseason, I do a lot of these episodes live. You want to join me there. Usually start recording around 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. However, Tuesday's episode will not be live. I'm going to do a pre-recorded show with Grant McCauley. We're going to do an off-season preview as we are now into the meat of it. Contract decisions have been made, which is what we're going to talk about on today's episode. So looking forward to getting into all of that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, we got a lot of people in here already joining live. Thank you so much for being in here with me, going over this. A lot of fun stuff to talk about with these contract decisions that have been made. Michael Cox in here, I see. TR Dor, Chris Kaysen, Nick C. Leland's in here as well. Barracuda, Jeffrey Humphreys, Lone Wolf, Veronica, Nick, Lee Carter. I got a lot of you in here already. Thank you so much for joining. Should be fun conversations tonight. Bojack in here as well. Jacob Pearsons. Thanks so much for joining live. Again, I do a lot of these off-season episodes live. If you want to join those, again, look for the tweet from the podcast on social media to join those, or join on YouTube. You're subscribed on YouTube, you should get that notification. Lot to talk about today. So much to unpack. I'm hoping I'm going to get to these comments because we got a lot of stuff in here to discuss. But let's start with the contract decisions, because that's really what we've been waiting for. It's why I've kind of been holding off on my offseason preview, because a lot of what happened today, I think, is going to tell us a lot about how this offseason is going to go. And the big thing is the Braves are bringing back Charlie Morton. And that was the biggest decision in my mind that really could flip the way that this offseason goes, because you don't bring back Charlie Morton, not only do you have a huge hole in your starting rotation, but on the flip side, you also have $20 million to play with a little bit this year that you could have gone on out and spent maybe somewhere else, or maybe to add a couple of quality arms. But it's one more year at $20 million per year. Not really surprised that it's picked up. You know, my final decision on that was, what if Morton wants to come back, I think the Braves will take him back. Now, it sounds like the way that Jeff Passan reported, and I think he was the first one to report it, Lady Brave saying she's happy Morton is staying. I am too. Jeffrey as well saying glad they kept Charlie. I think Charlie brings a lot of good value. But based on the post from Jeff Passan, it sounded like there was a lot of back and forth in the Braves front office of whether they wanted to bring him back or not. I don't know this, but I would not be surprised if they tried to renegotiate his deal for a little less, to see, maybe talk with him and say, hey, would you come back for $12 million? Would you come back for $15 million? And again, I don't know that happened. And Charlie Morton may have very well said, no, we agreed on 20. That's not what I'm going to get. I may just go off and retire. Not that I don't think money is that huge of a factor to him at this point, but either way, Braves picked it up. Morton agreed to it. He wants to come back. I think that's a good thing for the Braves, because now you look at the top of this rotation, you got Strider, Fried, and you got Morton. That's a solid 1, 2, 3. So you have those guys healthy for the postseason. You feel pretty good about your rotation. Can't be it, though. And I think that's what everybody kind of agrees on, is that we're all happy, or a lot of us, I think, are happy Charlie Morton is back. But if you don't follow that up and get another solid third starter, look, maybe it will be Sonny Gray. If he has that qualifying offer attached to him, which I believe that was made official as well on Monday, then it's hard for me to see the Braves giving him much money and losing that draft pick. I don't think it'll be a Jordan Montgomery. I definitely don't think it's going to be an Aaron Nola or a Blake Snell, but I think you do have to go out and find another third starter, another middle of the rotation veteran starter that you can count on in a postseason, type of rotation. Or if one of your top three guys goes down, you cannot. We've seen what happened the last two postseasons. Not that starting pitching was the problem, other than Game 3 this past year, but we've now seen 2 years in a row where right before the postseason, the Braves have had either a couple pitchers, or in the case of, I guess it was a couple pitchers this year as well, with Morton and Fried not being 100%. So it's now 2 years in a row that you've had two of your starting pitchers go out just before the postseason. We're going to talk more about that later, and how I think the Braves need to be strategic and how they manage their starting pitchers through the regular season to make sure they're healthy for the end, more so than the beginning or even the middle. I mean, this is a Braves team that they should get to the postseason in some form or fashion, whether it's one of the wild card spots or winning the division again. But more importantly, they got to make sure these pitchers are healthy for the postseason. But all that aside, for now, even with Charlie Morton coming back, who I think is still can be good when he's on, he's dominant. That curveball is still elite, an elite pitch for him. And he's got to locate better. You got to find a way to drop that walk rate if you can. He's not getting any younger, so maybe he can't, but he can still be a really good pitcher for you, and a really good veteran pitcher, and somebody who's great for the rest of the staff. So I'm happy with Charlie Morton coming back, but this can't be it. There has to be more to it. You have to go out and add somebody else and get him, to supplement that rotation, to add more quality depth. There is a ton of depth in the Braves starting rotation. We talked about it last week. There is a lot of depth in the Braves starting rotation. They need quality depth. They don't need the Dylan Dodds, the Jared Schusters of the world, who, I'm not trying to give up on those guys after their first big league stint, but they need quality, proven depth. But, in the case of Charlie Morton, it's a 1-year deal for $20 million. Joey Me says, $20 million for top pitching isn't crazy. Wait until we see the Dill, Snell, Nola, and Yamamoto, etc. get. Yeah, they're going to get 20. They're going to get over 20, and they're going to get it for more years. And again, these are the types of deals that Alex Anthopoulos likes for starting pitchers. He'd rather have the higher AAV. Again, $20 million for what Morton is at this point is probably too much. But when you're only paying it for 1 year, there's a lot less risk involved. And those are just the types of deals that Alex Anthopoulos likes for pitchers. That's why you may see him go after Luis Severino, Jack Flaherty, maybe a Lucas Giolito. If you can get him on a 2-year deal, a 3-year deal, that length of time of the contract for pitchers is just so risky. So yeah, $20 million does seem like a lot. As Chris Kaysen says, Morton had a 3.6 ERA in 23. That's solid. It certainly is, but he's a third starter. We've seen it at this point for 2 years now. It's just the inconsistencies that he has. So again, I'm glad that he's back, but if they don't go out and do more, then I don't know that I'd necessarily agree with this decision. Then I think you should have done the alternative and just save that money and go out and get a couple of decent quality starters. So for now, I like it. We have to see how the rest of the offseason unfolds. Again, I'm going to talk about that more tomorrow and really throughout the rest of this week. This is going to be our offseason preview content week. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk with Grant McCauley. We'll give our offseason preview. I'll give my dream scenario offseason, and we'll just have all kinds of offseason content throughout the week. But for right now, I am happy with the decision to pick up Charlie Morton, because feels a big hole in your starting rotation. And even though he's getting up there in age, he still gives you innings, and at times gives you really good innings. So as Four Putt says, 160 innings, 200 strikeouts, sub 3.5 ERA for 20 million. I'll take it all day. Yes. It is a good value. Would I rather have it for 15 million? Yes, but 20 million for 1 year, you pretty much know what you're going to get with Charlie Morton at this point. I think it is a good deal. But again, there has to be more to it, in my opinion. So we'll see how the rest of the offseason unfolds. That was just one of the contract decisions of the day, and that was the only one that got picked up. The rest of them got declined. We'll talk about Eddie Rosario and the others next. Score this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining a FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. You got the NFL season in full swing right now, NBA season going on, NHL. There's a lot of sports happening right now. So now is a great time to get in on the action with FanDuel. Their app is super easy to use. The website as well. I go over there and check. And I went over there the other day and checked to see who is the favorite to win the World Series in 2024. Well, it is your Atlanta Braves. And I got to think bringing back Morton helps that even more so. So right now you go over to FanDuel, you'll see the Braves are the favorite to win the World Series in 2024. But their app's easy to use. They have spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get in on the action. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Visit FanDuel.com/play-safe as well for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Getting back into the contract option decisions from Monday, kind of the day we've all been waiting for, that I think, tell us a lot about how the rest of this offseason is going to go. And Lady Braves asking, if Eddie Rosario's not in left, who will take his place? And that is the big question, what we'll talk about throughout the week. But that was the other big decision on Monday. The Braves declined to pick up the option, $9 million option for Eddie Rosario for 2024. That to me was a bit of a surprise. We talked about this one a lot, obviously, in the past couple of weeks. If you would have asked me what I thought was the likelier, what had, the best chance of happening, you want to, if there's a line on FanDuel, which option gets picked up, Morton or Rosario, I would have bet on Rosario. I just think $9 million for what he gives you, I think it's a really good value. And I don't know how you replace that this offseason. I don't think the Braves are going to get a Cody Bellinger. I don't think they're going to get a Teoscar Hernandez. If you get Lourdes Gurriel, I don't honestly know how much of an upgrade that is over Eddie Rosario. It's hard for me to envision right now, again, not knowing what's available through trades or what maybe the Braves' plans are with Vaughn Grissom. Maybe they start transitioning him to left field. Obviously, I don't know what the Braves' plans are, but it's tough right now not having Lone Wolf. I doubt Grissom's headed to left field either. I think they would have already made that transition, but I don't see a path right now to get a significant upgrade over Eddie Rosario, unless the Braves are just going to spin big. But even if you do, those are the options that I just gave you. It's at least in terms of free agents, it's Cody Bellinger, it's Teoscar Hernandez, it's Lourdes Gurriel. There's just not a lot out there that I can see, in the free agent market that is a significant upgrade over what Eddie Rosario can give you for $9 million. And look, Eddie Rosario frustrates me. During the season, I came on here and I said, I think you should start Kevin Pillar and just take the defense and not the frustrations that Eddie Rosario gives you at the plate, and save him for a bench, player who comes in against a righty in a clutch situation where he was really good with the Braves. But now, again, you see the value, and when he can have those hot streaks, I just don't know. I don't know what else out there you can get that would be a significant upgrade over Eddie Rosario near that price point. Again, you look at Cody Bellinger, he's probably going to get huge contract coming off a big season, and a season that I don't know if I fully believe from Cody Bellinger. You're looking at a Hunter Renfroe, a big right-handed bat. Teoscar Hernandez, a big right-handed bat, maybe a DH. Jock Peterson, he is strictly a DH. JD Martinez, strictly a DH at this point. Lourdes Gurriel, he's, in my mind, somewhat similar, maybe a little bit more consistent than Eddie Rosario. I think that's a slight upgrade, but you're going to pay more to get him. I don't see where the clear path is to get a huge upgrade over what Eddie Rosario can give you at $9 million. And again, I'm not somebody who's in love with Eddie Rosario. I've made that pretty clear on this podcast, but just looking at the free agent market for outfielders right now, I don't know who gives you better value than what you could get from Eddie Rosario at $9 million. Unless, as some of you are pointing out in the chat right now, JL, others in here saying go and get Juan Soto. I don't see how that happens. I don't think the Braves have the prospects to make that happen, unless you're giving up somebody from the major league roster. And again, I don't know why you would do that. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, we can sit here and talk about dream scenarios for trades, and maybe Alex Anthopoulos has something in mind. But unless it is a trade, or unless they're going to spend big money on a left fielder, I just don't know where they go to get a huge upgrade this offseason. And see some people saying Adam Duvall. Adam Duvall is not an upgrade over Eddie Rosario. I'm sorry. He is, a right-handed bat who sometimes has reverse splits and sometimes doesn't. Yes, he can play good defense. I just don't see it. You're going to go out and trade for Luis Robert. Again, if we're talking trade scenarios, we can talk about dream trade scenarios if you want. But again, I'm just talking about free agent market specifically. I don't see where there's a clear upgrade over Rosario. See Austin Peraza and Alex Verdugo. If the Red Sox are shopping him, it'd be a rental player. I wouldn't give up too much for him, but I wouldn't mind that. I think that would be a solid player for left field. Ozuna's not playing left. Nick C, I'm sorry. Four Putt talking about Renfroe. He's a home run hitter. He's had good defense in the past. It's just, it's another big right-handed bat. Again, could you go out and get other guys? Sure. But you're going to be paying more, and I don't know how much more production you're going to be getting. I mean, $9 million for what Eddie Rosario gives you, I think is really solid. So again, unless there's a trade, certainly Alex Anthopoulos, I have full trust in him that he's going to go out and solve this left field situation. It's just, for me right now, I don't see an easy path to that happening. I feel like it almost has to be through a trade. And again, we can all dream about possible trade scenarios. Bojack talking about, will they sign Lourdes Gurriel or Tommy Pham for left field? Yeah, you could. You're going to probably pay more than $9 million for either one of them. And I don't know that either one of them is a significant upgrade over Eddie Rosario. At that point, I'd almost rather just save the money, work Vaughn Grissom out there, and see what happens. It's not the typical, left field profile, but you don't need that with this lineup that has power up and down. So again, there are people, stop saying Adam Duvall. It's not happening. There are people they can go out and sign. You're probably going to pay more than what you were going to have to pay Eddie Rosario. And I just don't know that the production is that much greater than what you would have gotten from Rosario. So this is one for me. Again, we kind of have to wait and see what happens in the offseason. If they have a plan to go out and significantly, upgrade in left field, or do you go for some cheaper platoon options? Maybe you go for a Randall Grichuk and, a left-handed bat somewhere. Again, you're probably still paying over $10 million for some sort of platoon combo. I don't know. This is one we're definitely going to have to wait and see. I'm not saying I don't like it, because I was never a huge Rosario fan. It's just, until I see what the plan is, the plan A is, it's really hard for me to evaluate not picking up Eddie Rosario at $9 million. The rest, we knew they were going to decline Brad Hand. They actually already announced that the other day. Was pretty positive they were going to decline Colin McHugh. I thought they would pick up the Kirby Yates deal just because, it wasn't that big of a difference between what you're paying him and his buyout, which is a pretty substantial buyout, and what he'd actually would make in 2024. So I thought they might keep that one because Yates was okay. He had big strikeout rates, just big walk rates and gave up some home runs. But I thought they would pick that one up because you weren't really saving much money when you consider the buyout. But again, that's one not too surprising either that they declined that one. So Charlie Morton's the only one that gets picked up in that scenario. So those are the contract options. So now we know what the Braves need going into the offseason. Again, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but you got to have another starting pitcher. They may be done in the bullpen, and you got to figure out left field. I think that may be the bigger question at this point, because who is your left fielder? You look at the 40-man roster now. I really didn't have time to go through the 40-man roster, but that had to get narrowed down today as well, and did as they made some moves. Jackson Stevens elected free agency, opened up a space on the 40-man roster. They claimed Angel Perdomo, who has a big arm but just can't stay healthy, added him to the 40-man roster. So, those were the moves that were made. Like I said, we talked about last week, we talked about the 40-man roster crunch. So they are now down to 40 men as they had to get those guys off of the injured list. So those were some of the moves that were made there. Some of those had already been decided as well. Andrew Velasquez, Sam Hilliard, those guys were already cut loose. So Braves roster right now is at 40 guys. Like Michael Soroka's on there, Yanni Chirinos is on there, Luke Williams is on there, Michael Tonkin is on there. These are all guys that you could see get cut if room needs to be made. Just because they're on the 40-man now doesn't mean they'll be there when the season starts. It's just the decisions that they had to make on Monday to get it to 40 guys, more so to get the guys off the injured list onto the 40-man roster. And to do that, they had to cut some guys. But that doesn't mean that they're still going to tender a contract to Michael Soroka. They got some time before they do that. And, other guys as well. We could still see some of these guys get cut. You got to make room for the Rule 5 draft guys like Luis Diavila, Jesse Franklin, who I think they'll try to make room for, and then any other moves you might make this offseason. So just because you're on the 40-man now doesn't mean you're going to be there opening day. There are still roster cuts the Braves could make, but those were the moves that they made to get it down to 40-man to a 40-man roster size on Monday. All right, we got a lot more to talk about. Some awards coming out, some big shakeups in some managers in the NL Central, which I think is pretty exciting and fun. It could be really fun to talk about here, including old Brave David Ross, who was just suddenly let go by the Chicago Cubs in favor of Craig Counsell, who left the Brewers. For some reason, the Brewers let him go. We'll talk about all of that, and I'll take some of your questions here next. So it was a wild Monday for news in Major League Baseball. We talked about all the moves that the Braves made and the contract decisions, but a lot of big news in the managerial world as well. We knew Craig Counsell was out there, and he was getting a lot of looks. A lot of people maybe thought he'd go to the Mets. That was one name that was being looked at. I don't know that anybody mentioned the Chicago Cubs. And at the last minute, or I don't know if it was the last minute, but as things were unfolding today, it was announced the Cubs were hiring Craig Counsell, and nobody even knew that David Ross had been fired. It was just the most odd timing of a managerial announcement. I don't know that I've ever seen that Cubs had a manager, and then they hired a manager and let a manager go. A manager that was really good, had them on the brink of making a postseason appearance this year when nobody thought they would be. I'm not saying David Ross is the best manager in the world, but it was just really weird the way that things unfolded. So I think that's a great pickup for the Cubs. I'm glad that the Mets didn't get him. The Mets did also hire a manager on Monday as well. I apologize, I don't remember the name, and I really wasn't familiar with them. I know they've been on the Yankees coaching staff for a while. But that was the big news. The Cubs getting Craig Counsell. Again, like I said, I thought he was going to go to the Mets like a lot of other people did. And I think that would have been a great hire for the Mets. I don't know how Counsell he did a great job in Milwaukee, but that is a lot different than managing in New York. But either way, that's not going to happen. They get somebody who is familiar with managing in New York, and that's Carlos Mendoza, who, again, had served as a Yankees bench coach for the last 4 seasons. So that's who the Mets go with. I don't know much about that hire. Don't know much about Mendoza as a manager. We'll see how that all unfolds and how that works out for them. You also had some awards finalists list. You had Acuna on the NL MVP awards list. With Betts and Freeman, Acuna's going to run away with it, in my opinion. I don't know how Matt Olson has the season that he had and wasn't a finalist. I know Betts and Freeman were fantastic, but the season Matt Olson had wins MVPs in a lot of seasons. But not only was he not in the top 3, he's, Acuna, like I said, is head and shoulders, in my mind, over the other 2. And Olson, again, just had an incredible season and doesn't even get to be a finalist. Snitker is a finalist for manager of the year. I think he should win it. I thought he should have won it last year, but definitely I think he should win it this year. So I think both of those guys have a good chance of coming home with the trophy. A lot of news to get to. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff there, but I think those are the big highlights. Try to go through some of the questions here. C1 from Bellfire, making room for Shohei by refusing the Rosario option, right? Yeah. So again, bold strategy here, declining the $9 million that Rosario was going to make to go after Ohtani. So hopefully that's what AA has up his sleeve. Stu Tillery, Jorge Soler, Adam Duvall, or Randy Arozarena for left field. If I'm picking from those 3, I'm taking Randy Arozarena. I don't think Soler can play left field at this point. I've never loved Adam Duvall. I love Randy Arozarena. I don't think the Rays are going to trade him, though. Chris Kaysen is close. Olsen versus Freeman. Olsen still takes 3rd place, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, look, in the end, Acuna's going to win it, but it's crazy to me that Olsen put up the numbers he had and doesn't even get a top 3 finish. He's probably going to be 4th, but that was just pretty wild. Joseph Recap, Jocktober. Look, I love Jock Peterson, and I want him back because I want him in that clubhouse. Unless he wants to be a bench player. I mean, he can play outfield. It's going to be rough. We all thought Eddie Rosario was rough in left field. I'm telling you, Jock Peterson would be worse. Jock Peterson, the DH at this point in my mind, and I don't think you're going to platoon him with Ozuna, who had some reverse splits this year. So I don't see Jock coming back. I don't see how the Braves fit that in unless some other moves are made. JL, Michael Harrison needs a big season next year. He's been pretty good the last 2 years, but I agree. I think there's another tier for Michael Harris to get to. I think he could be even better. Little League 20-game winner Spencer Strider snubbed from Cy Young finalists in favor of Logan Webb of the Giants with 11-30. Oh wow, I did not see the Cy Young finalists. I didn't know Webb made it over Strider. Yeah, I know Strider had the elevated ERA with all those home runs, but yeah, if you'd have told me Logan Webb was going to be a finalist over Strider, I thought you were crazy. Teoscar, Joseph Recap says Teoscar Hernandez. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's got the big power, not the best defense in the world. I think he could get close to 20 million. I wouldn't hate it. I don't think it's a perfect fit. It brings another kind of, home run bat to this lineup, which is what the Braves obviously are great at. So you want to continue to build on that, but it's also no walks, a lot of strikeouts, a lot of chase, a lot of swing and miss in his game. And I just don't think this lineup needs more of that. Sprint speed's really good. Defense is actually, pretty solid for Teoscar. I just don't see the fit. It's weird to say I don't see the fit in the lineup because he fits perfectly in the lineup in the fact that he's a home run hitter like the rest of them. But again, the low walk rates, the high strikeout rates, I just don't think this lineup needs more of that. CJ Palmer, hey Jake, do you think AA picking up Morton Sobson suggests the Braves have more money to spend than we perhaps thought heading into the offseason? And this is a great question. It's a question I'm not really going to have time to answer, but we may do an episode maybe Thursday this week talking about the payroll. Obviously, we don't know. Nobody knows what the Braves are going to spend this offseason, but it's a good point that with picking up the option for Charlie Morton, that's a $20 million AAV, and AAV is what pushes up that luxury tax are the Braves going to go into the tax for a second year in a row? Penalties really start to hit that third year in a row that you do it. So they could do it one more year, and I think it will be fine. But the year after that is when, you really don't want to do it 3 years in a row. So picking up that option on Charlie Morton does hurt them towards the luxury tax, but we'll probably have to do a full episode or at least a full segment talking about payroll. But again, we don't know. Nobody knows how much they're actually going to spend. We know they make a lot of money there at the Battery and have for the past several years now. So I think they have the money, but I just don't know how high they're actually willing to go. And if they're going to do something else significant this offseason, they're going to have to blow past what they did this past year, which was by far the highest we've seen them spend before. Stu Tillery, any chance we sign Tim Anderson? Absolutely not. No, I don't think so. Nick C, you think the MLB will ever have a salary cap for each team? Yankees, Dodgers, Mets are the only teams talked about every offseason. No, I don't think so. Just because the players' union is so strong in Major League Baseball compared to other sports, and putting a cap on those teams means less money for those players. I would like to see a floor more than a cap to kind of force some of these other teams to spend money. I think a salary floor certainly needs to happen. I don't know that it will. 4-putt, leave Wallen left and get Montgomery. So, look, I was on the Forrest Wall bandwagon this past year. Former top prospects kind of coming out, having a good year, all that speed. I don't think you can go into 2024 with Forrest Wall as your left field. If something happens and he gets an opportunity and he makes the most of it and runs with it, then fantastic. I just don't think you go into 2024 thinking, okay, this guy who's, has never played really at the big league level and has really struggled in the minors and hasn't broken through, we're going to just hand him the left field job. It's just hard for me to see the Braves doing that. Doc's Cards, Lourdes Gurriel, kind of talked about him already. I could, I could see it. And I think maybe it's a marginal upgrade over Eddie Rosario. But to me, it's not that significant of a move. Not that big of a move, in my opinion. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Appreciate you joining. Had a lot of people in here, over 150 people in here live. Thank you so much for that. Most we've had in here in a while. We are getting into the offseason content now. This is going to be offseason preview week. Again, I'm going to have Grant on tomorrow previewing the offseason. I'll give you my dream scenario offseason and also what I think the Braves will do this offseason. And we'll obviously have our mailbag episode on Friday. We'll probably have a payroll episode at some point as well. So we got a lot to talk about. But now, with the contract decisions out of the way, the 40-man rosters down to 40 men with all the guys cut that we know, it is time to get into the heart of this offseason. Going to see a lot of stuff happening. This is a really fun time to be a baseball fan. I know the regular season is great. I'd rather be watching games, but this part of the offseason from now through the winter meetings is a really fun part of the Major League Baseball offseason in my mind as well. So thanks for joining, all you in the chat, all your comments. Thanks so much. If I didn't get to your question or comment, make sure you leave it down below on YouTube. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure you subscribe to us on social media at Shortstop Ball and at LockedOn_Braves. Subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.